My balcony blocks my view of the playground, but I heard one child yell, "I found a frog!" with a great deal of excitement, and now there is screaming, so I'm filling in some blanks. Situational update. A little girl screamed, "Leave him alone!" And now there's noises that sound suspiciously like a child getting wailed on by a wiffle ball bat. Further update. Parent has been called to the scene. Distribution of fault is underway. Bat appears to have been confiscated. Bat has been returned under the promise of not deploying it once more against brothers. The pause and, "But tell him to leave the frog alone," tells me it will likely come back into play shortly. As expected, Frog was bothered again, and Frog Warrior took up her weapon once more. All children are being collected to leave on charges of acting like y'all have no sense! Personally, I stand with Frog Defender on this issue. Hashtag justice for Frog Girl. My favorite kid I ever taught when I was a swim teacher was this little 4-year-old Italian boy. One time he sneezed and nobody said anything, so he just went, "What? No bless yous for Giacomo?" My roommate and I quote this all the time, but the name keeps warping more and more every time. No dinner for Gabiblio. No shower for John the Baptist. No gas station Slurpee for Jorbagoth. My 4-year-old points to the label on my tea bag. "What does that say?" Me, it says, "Over 300 years of experience. It means the people at Twinings have been making tea for 300 years. Her, dramatic gasp. "They haven't even died?" Me, whispering, "Tea vampires. Immortality. You may live forever, but there is a steep cost." If you are in your late 20s or early 30s, you are finally beginning to experience a true sense of separation and alienation from youth culture and to naturally identify more with other adults as your peers. And that's a normal part of being an adult and moving into that stage of your life, and you must recognize it as such and resist the ancient joker's trick that is the urge to jump to the conclusion that nothing has changed about you and it is instead the children that have gotten weirder. My nephew is 5. I'm 33F. A few months ago, he asked me, "Auntie Franny, are you a grown-up?" I got really quiet, cautiously looked around, put my finger to my mouth, and told him, "I'm still a kid, but you can't tell anyone because no one knows." His eyes got huge, and he loudly whispered, "I knew it." Now, every time I see him, he comes up to me at some point and whispers, "Don't worry, I haven't told them," then proceeds to ask more questions about my life as a secret kid. And every time I'm video chatting with him and my sister, he sneaks an obvious wink, and I wink back, and only we know what that wink means. And to this day, he is the only person that knows I'm still a kid and that I've been faking it all this time. There's a kid annoying his exhausted mother in the row next to me on a small plane right now, so I asked him, "Have you ever thought about how weird it is that sounds existed for billions of years before ears evolved to hear them?" And now he's looking quietly out the window. Children can have a little existentialism as a treat. Overheard from a 2nd grade Zoom today. Teacher, "Okay now, what's at the end of life?" 7-year-old, That's a big... It's complicated." Teacher, "I mean the word life." 7-year-old, "Oh." My kid on mute muttering, "No, it's E." 100% here for the 7-year-old existential thinker who is grappling with big ideas, even if silent E is the answer to the 2nd grade question. I told a kid in my class the other day that it was going to be the year of the tiger. This kid is a kindergartner, 5 years old. Usually there's some interest when I bring this up, but this kid sort of sat with that for a couple minutes, expression settling into a 1,000-yard stare. Just as I was wondering if something was wrong, he looked at me with his haunted eyes and asked in a tone of resignation, "When are the tigers coming?" I had to quickly reassure him that the year of the tiger was like an animal assigned to the year and not another plague or natural disaster. Between the COVID, lockdowns, and huge flood of cicadas last year, this child probably decided that this was in line with how the world worked and was mentally getting his affairs in order. I guess a plague of tigers might as well happen. Having been told that it's rude to call dinner gross, our 4-year-old is finding increasingly creative ways to express himself. This tastes unlucky to me. This sends my mouth into outer space. That's bad. Cauliflower is, pinch his fingers together, this much delicious. You told your toddler not to be rude, and so now he is developing an incredible skill with sick fucking birds. Oh my god, but the last one with pinching fingers together and this much delicious is fucking excellent. I am using this from now on. I think that every child should have unrestricted access to thick blackberry brambles or some other delicious fruit that grows encased in a painful fortress. I think wading through thorns to reach the cluster of shining ripe berries you spied through a gap between the tangled vine teaches you something important. Not sure what though. I just know no fruit has ever tasted as sweet as the ones I ate while bleeding under the blistering summer sun. My best friend was allergic to the bramble pricks, so I remember wading in there alone at like 10 years old, getting blackberries for the both of us, coming out bloody but brandishing the spoils, because we wanted fruit, and because I wanted her to be happy even though she couldn't follow me in there. I don't know. Crunch Bar, do you know what your tags are doing to me right now? This is the epitome of love. The thing they don't tell you about working with little kids is it wrecks your vocabulary. You hear a kid phrase something bizarrely in a way only a 5-year-old can, and now anytime you lose your shit, you're like, it disappear. Every time someone tells me to be careful, in my head I repeat what one of my kids said as a small child. I am be carefuling. As a young child, my son said, rackaroni for macaroni. I worked with young children for years. It's amazing how much it changes your vocabulary. Little boy standing in the stroller just looked around the crowded coffee shop, pointed at me, and asked his mom, "What's his name?" And his mom said, "I don't know." And he asked me, "What's your name?" And I called back, "I'm Al," across the whole coffee shop. And he went, "Hi, Al." As we were leaving, like 3 people called out, "Bye, Al." I've decided I love humanity. Thanks for sharing, Al. I was with my mother's family and they were talking to me about my religious studies major. My great-aunt asked me what the definition of hell was, and I responded, "Well, I suppose it depends on who you ask." And nearly all the Protestants in the group decided that hell was the absence of God, which I suppose is a fair answer, albeit not a universal one. My cousin's wife was playing with her 3-year-old daughter, and she says, "Well, Mommy says that hell is a McDonald's play place." This 3-year-old girl is so fucking hilarious. Her mothers have signed her up for a toddler yoga class, and so she has adopted a very unique language. This child also has an imaginary friend named Mom, which is, in her mind, the boss of her 2 mothers. For example, my cousin's wife explained to me how her daughter got mad at them one time. The little girl situated herself in the corner of her crib, pretended to type on a cell phone, and said, "I'm writing an email to Mom right now and telling you how bad you 2 are. Namaste." My family's big theory about Mom is that both my cousin and her wife are referred to as Mommy and Mama. The nickname Mom is not used in the house because it would just be confusing. However, when interacting with the world, people tell their daughter that they will tell her mom if she is doing something wrong. So this child automatically assumes there is this greater mom figure that is responsible for distributing universal justice. To be fair to the toddler, that's pretty much how religions got started. Our mom, who aren't gonna hear about this. Guys, I heard children outside in the backyard of my school, and I'm on the 5th floor, but right above the playground. So I threw a paper airplane with a little message on it to them, and then they got excited. So I threw another one, and then I threw another, and then another, and then they started making requests, like, tell us a story. And I wrote a little thing about me throwing airplanes out the window, or draw us a picture of yourself, and I drew a picture that didn't look too great, but they thought it was fun, and they'd expectantly wait, and I'd throw another, and they'd be screaming and chasing it and trying to figure out who I am and stuff. And after 20 minutes, and like 40 airplanes, I sent one that said, "Do you want to see me?" And they were excited and started chanting, so I threw one that said countdown, and they counted down from 10, and then I actually poked my head out the window because they still hadn't seen me yet, and I had a handful of like 20 paper airplanes with me, and I threw them all one at a time as they tried to catch them like a giant ticket blaster at Chuck E. Cheese, and the look of pure delight and joy on those kids' faces was worth all that time and paper. This is still my biggest accomplishment, and the greatest moment of my life. I was teaching kids today, and they got fixated on the usual "are they dead now?" questions when I was talking about historical figures. So I was just like, yes, they're dead now. Everyone who was alive in the 1800s is dead now. And then one kid was like, except for you. I'm sorry to hear about your scalp. Okay, I must clear this up more concretely, since this has gone far beyond my circle of folks who have the context of why this is actually funny, because there are thousands of people here who are like, kids are so rude, kids are so evil, I hate kids. When, one, kids are little humans and they're learning and they should be treated as little humans who are learning. Don't be a dick to kids. Adults who are assholes to kids is such a bad look, and kids remember that shit. 2, this particular child was being so earnest, and except for you was said not as an insult, but like, oh, you're the last one left. I dress like this, everyone. Image of a person wearing a puffy 18th century shirt, waistcoat, and cravat. Thank you. A young family moved into a house next to a vacant lot. One day, a construction crew turned up to start building a house on the empty lot. The young family's 5-year-old daughter naturally took an interest in all the activity going on next door, and spent much of each day observing the workers. Eventually, the construction crew more or less adopted her as kind of a project mascot. They chatted with her, let her sit with them while they had coffee and lunch breaks, and gave her little jobs to do here and there to make her feel important. At the end of the first week, they even presented her with a pay envelope containing $10. The little girl took this home to her mother, who suggested that she take her $10 pay to the bank the next day to start a savings account. When the girl and her mom got to the bank, the teller was equally impressed and asked the little girl how she had come by her very own paycheck at such a young age. The little girl proudly replied, "I worked last week with a real construction crew building the new house next door to us." "Oh my goodness gracious," said the teller. "And will you be working on the house again this week too?" The little girl replied, "I will, if those assholes at Lowe's ever deliver the fucking sheetrock." This is the funniest thing I've heard my entire life. Truth. This is literally me as a kid. Dad used to have the responsibility of giving out the well reports that came in on the Friday night to anyone who phoned for the rest of the weekend. The problem was, on Saturday mornings, he was doing the food shopping, so I was given a list of approved callers and he'd leave the well report figures by the phone. Theoretically, I was just supposed to list off the numbers. Except, very early I started parsing the figures and give my own analysis. Apparently, engineers and geophysicists get a bit freaked out by a 10-year-old going, "It's not that good, the flow's really slow compared to last week, and there's gas pockets really screwing up the flow in the east pipe, judging by the pressure report." Dad still got that yelled at him at conferences. This is the fucker who used child labor to do well analysis. Was it wrong? That's not the point! Not to oversimplify an extremely complex discipline, but if I had to pick one tip to give people on how to have more productive interactions with children, especially in an instructive sense, it's that teaching a kid well is a lot more like improv than it is like error correction, and you should always work on minimizing the amount of no, wrong, and maximizing the amount of yes, and. For example, we have a species of fish at the aquarium that looks a lot like a tiny pufferfish. Children are constantly either asking us if that's what they are, or confidently telling us that's what they are. If you rush to correct them, you risk completely severing their interest in the situation, because 1, kids don't like to engage with adults who make them feel bad, and 2, they were excited because pufferfish are interesting, and you have not given them any reason to be invested in non-pufferfish. Instead, if you say something like, "It looks a lot like a tiny pufferfish," you're right, but these guys are even funnier. Want to know what they're called? You have primed them perfectly for the delightful truth of the Pacific spiny lumpsucker. I was in martial arts for years, and in particular, I kinda specialized in working with the younger kids. The two big rules when instructing younger students was compliment before critique, don't say but, say now. Praise kids on what they get right first, especially if they are struggling. Like OP said, kids don't like to engage with people who make them feel bad. They need encouragement when learning new things. Number 2 boils down to this. If you tell a kid a compliment, then say, but you need to fix this, that but completely negates your compliment. It's gone. It was cancelled out like adding a negative to a positive. Using, hey, that punch is looking great. Now let's focus on your stance, doesn't verbally cancel out the progress they've made. It's like they've checked off something on their list of stuff to work on. Wording can absolutely make or break a child's motivation and interest. I love 3-year-olds because they'll never say it to your face, but it's clear in every fiber of their being that they're certain that their communication skills are perfect, and any adults who can't understand what they want are just a little bit stupid. Oh, to have the confidence of a 3-year-old insisting they're called pig Newtons. My niece insisting that our reflections in mirrors are upside down. She refuses to be reasoned with. At this point, she's so confident in that logic that she's just right, you know? Q are the ever-favorite object of my heart. Okay, but the thing is that she is right? I mean, he's not, but she's exactly as right as the idea that our reflections are back to front, which is a thing people say to kids all the time to explain the reflection's reverse image. The idea that the reflection is reversed vertically, upside down, is exactly as correct as the idea that it's reversed horizontally. Your right hand equals the reflection's left hand. So if you've ever explained that phenomenon to her, then she's exactly as right as you were. You're both technically wrong. When my nephew was 3, he was convinced the color blue was actually called loam, and we were all incorrect. Not gonna lie, I cried the first time he said blue and not loam. When my little cousin very sincerely asked, "What's a hoil?" What is a hoil? This question has vexed our family for years. Me insisting that a cloudy sky is called forecast. Wait, except I think I was 5? In my defense, my first memory of rain is when I was 9 years old. Droughts, y'all. One of my fondest memories is of a kid explaining how to play chess, and telling me the rules like I was an idiot. But all of her rules were wrong. When I was 5 years old, I decided my surname was Salamander. My niece is explaining to me how my fiancé is my boyfriend and that husbands are just not a thing and everyone is just a boyfriend. I work with 3-year-olds. I was explaining to one of the kids what a fire alarm does and that hopefully it does not go off, and she asks me, "Maybe tomorrow?" And I was like, well, hopefully never. When I counted my cousin's fingers and he counted them too to make sure I got it right. Listen to me. Listen to me. Listen to me. Listen to me. I know there is a lot of discourse, TM, around this right now, but listen to me. Sometimes you do just have to lie to children. If, when my toddler is, toddling around saying, "Mama, big ball," if I were lean down and say, "Unfortunately, the big beach ball for some reason fills you with such an unadulterated rage that is beyond human comprehension that you scream until you pass out. So Mama had to remove the beach ball from the premises until you can better regulate your emotions," she would simply stare at me like I had 3 heads full of equal betrayal. So for now, instead, big ball went night-night. Please understand when I say removed the ball from the premises, I mean I popped it in a fit of exhausted confusion. I murdered the beach ball. See? I've lied to you all too. And it was better this way. That wasn't a lie though, the big ball did go night-night. It went to the great night-night that awaits us all. You can't just leave this in the tags, etc. You can't be funnier than me on my own posts. I am in tears from laughter. This is hilarious, but I'm also super curious as to why exactly your toddler is filled with rage at the sight of a beach ball. I'm so done with seeing articles about kids and screen time that doesn't mention parent behaviors even once. Kids are always on their phones. So are the parents, which the kids look to for how they should behave. iPad babies didn't choose to only play on their iPads. That's what their parents gave them. An anecdotal example. When I was a kid, all my parents would do in their minimal free time was watch TV, and then they would be surprised when in my sister and I's minimal free time, we would also watch TV or play video games. They scolded us for not reading books. but they never read books. They scolded us for not going outside, but they never went outside. Kids are always on their damn phones. My mom is in her 60s and opens Candy Crush anytime she's sitting. It isn't just the kids. I'm 41. When I get together with my mother, I try to be present, engaged, and involved. Meanwhile, I have to beg her to fucking put her phone down and stop scrolling through Facebook. I went out to lunch with my nephew, his wife, their baby, and my mom. All of them were on their phone. My nephew was letting the baby watch his phone, while I was trying to start conversations. My neighbor's daughter came over so I could teach her to sew. I told her, I'm fine with you checking your phone when you get a message, but when we're working, I'd like it if you focus on what we're doing, so you can learn and don't hurt yourself. Know what she did? Told her friends she was going to be busy for the next hour and stayed off her phone, even with one of her friends being an emotionally abusive dickhead. He kept demanding she answer all his messages within seconds and was pulling crap like, you're ignoring me because you don't like me anymore. No, dude, she was busy. That is 100% emotionally abusive. She talked to me about it, and I encouraged her to stand up for herself and warned her to watch out for that behavior. She ended up cutting him off a few weeks later, and I'm proud of her. The kids? The kids are fine. They'll learn to navigate this way better than current adults.
Whenever it is I become a parent, I'd adore being a mom someday, though I'm in no big rush. I'm going to emphasize moderation in all things, including moderation, which is my favorite Mark Twain quote ever. This goes for moderating screen time, moderating behaviors and beliefs, and moderating physical, mental, and emotional inputs. I'll know that anything I do and say will be watched and heard, and probably repeated in some way, shape, or form, so I'd better be an example of goodness, fairness, and fun so that they can carry on the best of what humanity has to offer. This post really got to me. Put your phones down. Someday when I'm a parent, the kids are alright.
My dad trying to explain the concept of money to me. Say you have a sandwich, and I need your sandwich, but I don't have anything to give you. You're not just gonna give it to me. Me, I would just give it to you. My dad, ugh. In elementary school, we had basically an immersive economics lesson that was playing city with different jobs and businesses. It was mostly semi-free time for socializing and selling and buying toys and snacks from each other. One of the lessons we were supposed to learn was the importance of paying a small amount of money into health and/or business insurance, because you had a chance of being hit with the daily disaster and a huge bill. Anyway, some kid who didn't buy insurance got hit with a medical bill early on, so he was supposed to be bankrupt and have to sit the rest of the game out. The 8-year-olds were not having it and spontaneously invented crowdfunding, so he could keep playing with everyone else. Kids who don't get it are right, actually. Endlessly, morbidly fascinated by how when you're a kid, you're constantly having parents, school, religion, media, all drumming it into your head that sharing is good and you need to do it. And then you grow up and suddenly they're all like, right, never mind all that. This is the real world and it's every bastard for himself. Lying to children is fun when they know you are being ridiculous. When you hold up a carrot like, guys, look at this huge Cheeto, and they all scream, no, that's a carrot! What? No, it's my giant Cheeto! No! When I was a camp counselor, a fellow counselor claimed that any silly camp song we sang was his next hit single, and we should all follow him on SoundCloud, and he stuck by this daily, and it never ceased to amuse both the adults and the children. When children are small and learning to count, and you say the numbers out of order, peak comedy. How many toys are there? Let's see. 1, 2, 6... No! 1, 2, 3! What? Are you sure? Let me try again. 1, 2, 6? No! Once reduced a toddler into a fit of giggles by singing A, B, C, D, E, F, Q. The classic joke is when it's their birthday and you ask them if they're like 20 years old. They're like, no, I'm 4! Kids are funny. I just had a random memory of a friend's kid when she was about 6 or 7, when she cornered a couple of us at a get-together and says, "Wanna know what my dad had for lunch?" We figured this was, while unusual, a pretty straightforward conversation starter. "Sure," we said. We were not prepared. She went on this epic storytelling monologue about the restaurant and Italy and the art on the walls and some dramatic story she made up about the art on the walls. We were enraptured. No idea what was going on, but by God, we were hooked. At no point does she mention food. The next week, similar get-together with the same people. Same friend I'm talking to. Same child walks up. Want to know what my dad had for lunch? But now we're prepared. We're excited. We're about to hear some shit. We grin in anticipation. Sure! A salad. She walks off, seemingly unaware she just set up the funniest fucking week-long joke my friend and I had ever heard. I laugh every time I read this. Gold! Tonight on My Husband Doesn't Know How to Baby Talk. Ma'am, are you aware that these, right here, are your hands? They belong to you, and you get to decide what happens with them. So when you use these hands to pull your binky out of your mouth, that is not necessarily a dad problem. I'll fix it, obviously. I just want you to acknowledge it's not my fault. Husband, ma'am, it has been reported lately that you do in fact have tiny little toes and a little button nose. Do you care to comment? Penny Rose, babbles and baby. Husband, riveting. Penny Rose, does that high-pitched baby yell. Husband, let it out, friend. Feel your feelings. Me, silly husband doesn't know how to do baby talk. All of Tumblr collectively at my husband, you're doing amazing, sweetie. Penny Rose, does a sad baby scream. Husband, you don't even have to understand taxes yet. I can explain them, but you've got several years before that's relevant. Penny Rose, wide eyes, staring at her father, almost intrigued. Husband, I lied to you, Penny. Your mother does our taxes. Do you want to know about arbitration? I know all about arbitration. The man, the myth, the legend. Yes, he just walks around the house and talks to her like this. Penny Rose, cooing as Twinkle Twinkle Little Star plays. Husband, now Penny, there is a lot of misinformation out there in the world, and I hate to tell you this, but the moon is in fact not made of cheese. That is a conspiracy theory pushed by Big Dairy. What? Did you know talking earnestly with a child instead of baby talking and goo goo gaga-ing at them helps them develop speech patterns far faster and helps build their sense of confidence and personhood? Your husband is doing you a favor. Plus, the child will likely have a sharp sense of humor, too. This is terrible, but today, when I was playing volleyball outside with some friends, one of their children, 18 months, was sort of ambling around on his stumpy little toddler legs, and so we were all trying to be careful and not spike the ball onto the baby. But then he wandered over to his father, who picked him up because dad reflexes, and then the ball got passed over to the dad, and he sort of had a no-thoughts moment and instinctively used his child to smack the volleyball over to the next person. Like he just swung the kid and used his legs like a baseball bat. I'm never going to forget his face of premature regret mid-baby maneuver right when he realized what he was doing, and the instant he realized his wife saw it happen. Anyway, the baby was fine. He didn't make contact with the ball all that hard, and he was just mad his dad wouldn't use him as a club again. But I had to sit down because I laughed so hard I cried. Yeah, that's a long, quiet drive home. At my sister's wedding, I gave my 5-year-old nephew a bag of 100 tiny ducks. He spent the day hiding them all in people's bags and pockets. For the last week, the WhatsApp group is just confused people finding ducks. The ducks even made it to Morocco with the bride and groom. At my library, we have a tiny menagerie behind the front desk. It consists of several tiny plastic or glass animals that we have found in the library for whatever reason, including dinosaurs. The other day, I was making a library card for a 6-year-old girl, and her dad lifted her up so she could see over the counter. They both caught sight of our menagerie, which has a duck in it, and the dad said, "Hey, remember the ducks? Did you hide that one here in the library?" Apparently their family had done something similar to the tweet above, also with a bag of many tiny plastic ducks. Is this a trend? The hot new prank? Hide a duck somewhere random today? You can get 100 tiny plastic ducks for $7 on Amazon, in traditional yellow or many colors. Tiny things. This is actually a genius prank idea. I love it. I want to do it. Look at this video of a child disappointed at their expensive gift. Children are so spoiled these days. That's cool. So why did their parents upload their small child being upset online in a public video, shared to the entire video? Why did they even save the recording? Like, the kid in that scenario could be saying the most entitled nonsense in the world, and if their parents posted online to be publicly shamed, I'd still support the kid 100%. Thinking your child's life is a toy to exploit freely for content is spoiled. When faced with mommy vloggers, kids should be demanding 3 PS5s and a new Bugatti, and we should be applauding them for it. This also tends to attract a lot of responses from grown adults eager to fantasize about how they'd punish the kid. And if your power fantasies involve you owning an 8-year-old, in the metaphorical sense, not the sixpence sense, I don't even know what to say. Also, there are a lot of expensive gifts that are really thoughtless. If an 8-year-old wants a Lego set and you buy them a model train set and they get pissed about it, you're the problem. I don't care that the thing was expensive. If you didn't ask or ignored what they wanted, that's on the parents. A lot of people seem to not realize or care why kids want specific things, and also that kids don't get what money is. They haven't had it beaten into them yet that they're supposed to like expensive things more than less expensive things. What they find enjoyable may have nothing to do with how expensive it is, and that fries the brain of well-off parents who care about things primarily as status symbols. The notion that someone could be happier with something that costs $20 than something that costs $2,000 infuriates them on a deep subconscious level. It's also limited by parents' lack of knowledge about tech, so they can't understand why someone who wanted a Switch would be upset if they got a PS5. It's more expensive, so clearly it's just the same thing but better in their mind. They don't know or care that their kid really wanted to play Mario and that they can't do that on the PS5, so they process it as ungratefulness. Kids also don't have a huge amount of experience in anything, and it's a parent's job to teach them. This sounds incredibly obvious, doesn't it? Before a family Christmas celebration, when all 5 of us happened to be lounging around together, I announced we were playing present practice. I wrapped a toy frying pan in a muslin cloth and handed it to a child, who unwrapped it and mimed amazement. The older children and their father were all awarded points for their simulated appreciation, and the baby got points just for learning to unwrap something. On the second pass, we all leveled up to making a grateful comment in reaction to this particular gift, such as, "This will go in my collection of frying pans," and "Now I can cook one very small egg." For the 6-year-old, I very seriously presented the important and tricky case study of unwrapping a large exciting box to find a single pair of socks. The child suggested a reaction of, "This is great, how surprising," but, their face changing to seriousness and the tone of giving the giftee useful feedback for the future, "I'm not very interested in socks." They explained the utility of passing on this feedback. So, this being present practice, I received this reaction with the grace and thoughtful attention of an award-winning director, and we discussed how we would leave that part out for our more sensitive audiences. The children also traditionally give small, cheap, or handmade presents to their family members. Each parent takes each child secretly in hand to prepare a present for the other parent. The 6-year-old also has access to the PTA school shop, where the PTA purchase small shitty items, scented candles, bars of soap, cheap socks, and sell them to the school kids for £1.50 each, and wrap them on the spot. The 6-year-old carefully squeezes the value from the £10 we give them for this purpose, and squirrels away their mysterious bag of wrapped gifts like it's a state secret. The 3-year-old is given pocket money and taken shopping. There is now emotional investment in giving. We whisper together quietly about how much people will like the gift. The 3-year-old frequently whispers hotly into my ear about the item they chose for their grandmother. A tissue cover, Lamau. The children therefore watch adults carefully when their own offerings are unwrapped and admired. When they see us reacting with amazement and gratitude to their gifts, it maps that pathway and lights it up. It also teaches pretty early on that giving is actually supposed to be rewarding, and is a more reliable source of cheer, as you can always control the feeling giving, while getting is tiresomely at the whim of an external giver, isn't it? and it reinforces that a certain degree of social performance is expected. Present practice is a fun game to play, so the kids do it to each other. It's a funny trick to play on a parent, too. You can hand a parent something hilarious, like a potato wrapped in toilet paper, and see them try to do a level 3 reception on it. "This will be my favorite ever potato," I say mistily. "How did you guess what was in my heart?" For high-pressure present opening situations, you can just sit back and watch, really. Even when I had to let them open USA grandparent Christmas presents over Zoom at the house of the British grandparents, the children spontaneously decided to receive presents in the guise of angels. I was giving the kids wild thumbs up from behind the camera as they warmly enthused over the sentiments in the cards before even looking at the gift. Does it sound artificial? Well, they have fun, and they're kind, and they love giving and receiving. They're nice and well-behaved, and people love to give them presents. It's all social performance, and you're expecting super high-level software to run on kid hardware, which is like trying to program Plant Pathology 101 onto a border collie. Kind of an unfair expectation on the framework, mate. I'd suggest the first port of call is literally teaching kids how to get presents. If it isn't incredibly obvious, I condemn the parents in OP's post for so many reasons. But I think the most damning thing is not teaching a behavior and then being like, "Ooh, whoa, where did this behavior come from?" while filming it. That is not just stupid and cruel, which it is, but actively ongoing proof of failing at the fundamental job. People are often stupid and cruel, as well as ignorant and accidentally harmful. And as a society, we don't necessarily feel that should stop you from being a parent until it harms the child. Well, this kind of thing that OP describes has another layer to me, and that's the one where they've just failed the work. Sure, so they're not very nice or good people in one moment on the internet. Okay, whatever, I'm not a cop. But fundamentally failing at the framework of the job, though, that doesn't come from nowhere, and is harder to misconstrue or scramble the context. That really does come back to not teaching a child and then being mad because they aren't taught. I tried to be more positive in the post, though. Sorry, OP, if it sounded too positive, strangeness. Your sixpence comment is very funny. In our family, we have a special way of transitioning the kids from receiving from Santa to becoming a Santa. This way, the Santa construct is not a lie that gets discovered, but an unfolding series of good deeds and Christmas spirit. When they are 6 or 7, whenever you see that dawning suspicion that Santa may not be a material being, that means the child is ready. I take them out for coffee at the local wherever. We get a booth, order our drinks, and the following pronouncement is made. "You sure have grown an awful lot this year. Not only are you taller, but I can see that your heart has grown too." Point out 2 to 3 examples of empathetic behavior, consideration of people's feelings, good deeds, etc. the kid has done in the past year. In fact, your heart has grown so much that I think you are ready to become a Santa Claus. You probably have noticed that most of the Santas you see are people dressed up like him. Some of your friends might have even told you that there is no Santa. A lot of children think that because they aren't ready to be a Santa yet, but you are. Tell me the best things about Santa. What does Santa get for all of his trouble? Lead the kid from cookies to the good feeling of having done something for someone else. Well, now you are ready to do your first job as a Santa. Make sure you maintain the proper conspiratorial tone. We then have the child choose someone they know, a neighbor usually. The child's mission is to secretly, deviously find out something that the person needs and then provide it, wrap it, deliver it, and never reveal to the target where it came from. Being a Santa isn't about getting credit, you see. It's unselfish giving. My oldest chose the witch lady on the corner. She really was horrible. Had a fence around the house and would never let the kids go in and get a stray ball or frisbee. She'd yell at them to play quieter, etc. A real pill. He noticed when we drove to school that she came out every morning to get her paper in bare feet, so he decided she needed slippers. So then he had to go spy and decide how big her feet were. He hid in the bushes one Saturday and decided she was a medium. We went to Kmart and bought warm slippers. He wrapped them up and tagged it, "Merry Christmas from Santa." After dinner one evening, he slipped down to her house and slid the package under her driveway gate. The next morning, we watched her waddle out to get the paper, pick up the present, and go inside. My son was all excited and couldn't wait to see what would happen next. The next morning, as we drove off, there she was, out getting her paper, wearing the slippers. He was ecstatic. I had to remind him that no one could ever know what he did, or he wouldn't be a Santa. Over the years, he chose a good number of targets, always coming up with a unique present just for them. One year, he polished up his bike, put a new seat on it, and gave it to one of our friend's daughters. These people were and are very poor. We did ask the dad if it was okay. The look on her face when she saw the bike on the patio with a big bow on it was almost as good as the look on my son's face. When it came time for son number 2 to join the ranks, my oldest came along and helped with the induction speech. They are both excellent gifters, by the way, and never felt that they had been lied to, because they were let in on the secret of being a Santa. This is way better than straight up telling your kid Santa isn't real. Santa is real. He delivers presents and flies around with his sleigh and reindeer. Santa isn't real. It's actually just parents who put presents under the tree. Santa is real. Everyone who gives gifts and spreads joy is Santa. I never thought about it this way, and it makes me really happy. Growing up with a psychologist for a mother was so funny because my sister and I would be like, "Mom, why do we have to go to bed now?" And she would respond with a long explanation of the research on the effects of sleep on the brain and body, followed by another explanation on permissive versus authoritarian versus authoritative parenting styles, with citations. This was actually really good in some instances though, because I started having insomnia and intrusive thoughts very young, and when little me was like, "Mom, I don't like the thoughts in my head, but I can't make them go away, and I can't sleep," she replied with, "Oh, honey, active thought suppression never works. In fact, Wegner et al., 1987, tested this when they told a bunch of people to talk about whatever they wanted, and they told half of them to try not to think about a white bear. People thought more about the white bear when they were trying not to think about it. But when they told the people to think about a red car, whenever thoughts of the white bear came to mind, the people had a much easier time not thinking about the white bear. So you see, you can't force the thoughts out of your mind. You just have to let them pass through and pick something else that you want to focus on." And so ever since I was a very little kid, I knew how to deal with intrusive thoughts. I've had them my whole life, but never developed OCD or senses of shame about them, because my mom did her PhD on thought suppression, and she knows what's up.